Okay, this is Jimmy Jive, and you're listening to Motor City Rock Talk. Today, my guest is an extremely talented keyboard player who's performed in the Detroit metropolitan area and way beyond for many, many years. He's most noted for playing with Kid Rock probably since the early 90s. But today, I want to talk to him about some of his early bands that I'm aware of through a friend of mine that played with him. And those bands are Jack Black, The Fans, and of course, The Grave Robbers. Anyway, today my guest is, like I said, phenomenal keyboard player, James Lowry, a.k.a. Jimmie Bones. How you doing tonight, sir?
Oh, pretty good. James Trombley.
Trombley. I'm so sorry. I knew I'd screwed that up. But anyway, it's really nice to talk to you. I appreciate that. I know you're a busy guy and all that. Can we start with a little background? Basically, tell me like where you're from, where you grew up, and what got you into music and specifically playing, keyboard.
So I was born in Detroit. I was born at St. John Hospital. We're on the east side, 7 Mile Road. My parents, they bought a house in Roseville. Grew up in that house the entire time. They never moved from there.
Right.
And so, and my relatives on my mom's side were farmers from up in the Thumb around Ubley. And so I spent a lot of my summers growing up and in as much as I could in the winter time and all throughout the year, migrating up there as a kid, even into my 20s when the farm was still in our family, and stayed up there quite a bit. So, but yeah, around Roseville, the east side. When I was about, 10 years old or something. Well, let's go back further. We used to get together at my grandfather's house on my dad's side, my dad's father and parents. Every Sunday, he always would watch the Jackie Gleason show and Ed Sullivan show. Yeah. And we would be there for cookouts and what. Lo and behold, I ended up seeing the Beatles perform, do their debut performance on the Ed Sullivan show. So I saw that. Then my folks went out the next day and bought Meet Beatles, the album, and I listened to that on our Philips record player that was in the living room. It just resonated with me very early, and to this day I can still remember listening to the songs, but even listening to the backing vocals and noticing, all right, there's the main vocal line going on, but there's all these other singing parts that are meshing with it. So I became really aware of harmonies and everything, vocals and all of that, through the Beatles first. So, and even had the ear to pick them out at that age. Not too long after that, I saw the Rolling Stones. That resonated in a huge, huge way with me, and probably even continued heavily. They were a little more rough. And then being that age and summer times and listening to Detroit radio, CKLW and Keener 13, and hearing all of the Motown stuff and the stuff on the radio, turning on Robin Seymour's Swingin' Time day in the afternoon and seeing all the bands. That left a huge impact on me, and, seeing Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels on television, and Jim McCarty and Johnny B. Bedanjik, who, later on in life I would end up, playing with those guys and having them perform on my own solo record on Snakebit and Wandering. Right. Johnny B played a lot of the drums. Cardi played on a couple 3 songs on it, as did Wayne Kramer from the MC5. Right. So, and then from there on, it was probably about, 10 years old, and my mom and dad bought a Hammond organ from Grinnell's. I have never had a piano lesson in my life. I've never taken piano lessons, never had piano instruction. What I did learn on was a Hammond organ. When they bought it, it came with 10 free lessons, which my mom and my sister took. Then they asked me if I wanted to try it, and I did, and they fell by the wayside. I pretty much ran with it. Moved off of that and started hearing things like Billy Preston, The Wildest Organ in Town, that album, where he's just playing all of these R&B covers in with the in crowd, and he's got a really cool version of Satisfaction. He's got a really jazzy, syncopated version of Hard Day's Night on it. And my dad brought those records home, and it just really really resonated with me, hearing the organ played that way, the B3 played that way. And this was even before he was working with the Beatles or the Rolling Stones, you know. Those definitely made a huge impact on me. Piano that I did learn was from listening to record and hearing the piano that Johnny Johnson played with Chuck Berry, hearing Little Richard and seeing Jerry Lee Lewis, and I'm like, oh wow, these guys, okay, taking this instrument and just beating the hell out of it and, you know, rocking on this thing, you know, hey, if these guys can rock on guitars, you can do that on a piano just the way you play.
Jerry Lee Lewis playing with his foot.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that left its mark on me. All these things just started leaving an impact. And from there on, I just started listening to record. If I was around a piano, I'd start trying to emulate that style. Like, wow, how do you do this? They're just playing these chords, but they're playing in a real staccato, you know, eighth notes and 16th notes and banging away on us. And you know, listening to blues, Muddy Waters and that. My grandfather, I mean, he was a big country and western music fan. I grew up listening to a lot of what he listened to with Johnny Cash and Hank Williams Sr. and things like that. You know, coming from a, you know, Polish background, you know, he listened to a lot of that polka music, and that resonated with me as well. You know, just so much influence. And my grandpa was also a huge Ray Charles fan. And that, to this day, still is something that influences me in a huge way. From Ray Charles to Steve Winwood, you know. So,
were you a fan of, like, John Lord from Deep Purple as far as with the organ?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Later on, when that stuff started, you know, come around and people were pushing the envelope sonically with their instruments, you know, Jimi Hendrixes of the world, and, you know, the John Lords and Ken Hensley from Uriah Heep, Gary Wright when he was with Spooky Tooth, you know, before he started releasing his solo record. Yeah, and he was taking that organ and just overdriving the hell out of it. B3, you know, and
running it through with Leslie, all sorts of different things.
Yeah, Leslie's overdriving them through Marshalls. Okay, this is a whole nother thing, getting this volume going on. But I'm still even a big fan of like the organ that you hear on a lot of the 60s stuff, you know, Dave Clark 5 and the Animals and that, which are the Italian, you know, combo organs, the Vox Continentals and the Farfisas and things like that, and 96 Tears, you know, and Question Mark and the Mysterians and things like that.
Let's get into a little bit of your music career. We've gotten a good guess on where you came from and started. What would have been probably one of your earliest bands that you recall that you were actually, you know, playing out with?
Oh, well, this was in my high school days, and I started out, I was listening to things and singing, and I learned how to play the harmonica. My grandfather played, and I started listening to a lot of blues guys, Little Walter, and that I really loved. I'm playing in class one day, I think I was maybe in 10th grade or something. Guy a few rows back was listening to me play. He's like, can you sing? And I said, yeah, I think I can. Oh, we got a band, but we're looking for a singer, you know. Why don't we pick you up tonight and you come on down and see what you can do? So his name was Don Cherry. They had a band called Crossroads. So they picked me up, 4-piece band, Don on guitar, Larry Bova on drums, who, you know, I'm still friends with Larry and Don. Tim Kreutz on bass. So they launch into Going Down, Freddie King song. You know, we knew it from Jeff Beck, you know, what he did with it. Obviously, there was no piano there. But I sang and I, you know, started playing harmonica in the solo break. They, you know, they liked what I was doing. Then we did, they like, hey, you know any Mountain? And I said, yeah. So they did Never in My Life, and I sang that. Sang, you know, Keep Playing That Rock and Roll by Edgar Winter.
Did they have lyric sheets for you, or did you just know these songs?
No, I knew the songs. They were doing popular stuff that, you know, and I listened to a lot of all of it. I listened to the radio. What was, you know, back then radio was playing a lot of really great music. They weren't force feeding you whatever, you know, whatever the 20 song, if that playlist.
Right.
Radio was very freeform. WABX, you know, all of those days. W4 wasn't even around yet.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it was WABX, WRIF, CJOM was one of them. You know, listening to those, and with a lot of that, you know, when you're younger, your brain retains stuff almost instantaneously.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and I would buy records and hang out with my friends, and we would sit around, you know, listen to all these albums, reading through the lyrics and stuff like, you know, I wasn't so sure how good I was doing, and they were like, hey man, that's great, you want to sing with us? And I said, yeah, sure. We were doing some like different parties, high school and junior high school dances. There was a VFW hall on Gratiot in Roseville. They had Friday night teen dances. You know, did those on a pretty regular basis with a lot of the other bands from the area at the time. There was a band in our age group at Roseville High School called Stone Free. Really, really great band. I love those guys. Paul Monaco on guitar, Ray Regenauer on drums, and Chris Swan on bass. So yeah, it was kind of a rotation of bands, but those guys were great. They you know, they played a lot. I remember they would do Grand Funk Railroad for a 3-piece band. They were huge, right?
In that band at that time, I know the scene was different and all that as far as what you had to play. Were you guys writing or doing anything as far as original material? Had that started yet?
We were doing just covers in the beginning, and then I really started to push for let's write some original songs. And, you know, the stuff that we wrote was very Edgar Wintery, that stuff like that. And had very blues influence. It wasn't, you know, we weren't writing great music, but we were doing what we could. And that was our start. Oh, we were just, you know, following the people that we listened to, Free, and, you know, which led into Bad Company, Paul Rogers. You know, at the time, ZZ Top was just starting. When we first heard that, it was like, oh my God.
Now, were you playing keyboards at that time in the band, or just singing and playing an harmonica?
That would have been later on. I ended up renting an organ for one of the one that we had in our living room. I couldn't haul that.
Yeah, you're not moving that around.
That was a piece of furniture, and it was, you know, it was like in my mom and dad's living room. So I did end up buying that years later. You know, when I don't know, maybe I was about 18, 19 years old. I bought it. They were getting ready to get rid of it. I wasn't living at home anymore. I think I moved out when I was like 18 years old. So I bought that organ. It was a Hammond, and it was an M100. Ran it with a Leslie. Sounded exactly like a B3. As a matter of fact, when you listen to Thank You, the Led Zeppelin song Thank You, when you listen to a lot of the records, She's Not There by the Zombies, those kind of things, those are Hammond M100. They weren't even B3s. Yeah, John Paul Jones played an M100 on Thank You, and Since I've Been Loving You, and a lot of those things. You know?
So were you hauling that around the gigs then? I mean, that's like you said, furniture. Or did you get something else?
We were hauling it. I mean, it wasn't as big as a B3. It still had quite a bit of weight, more than one person. I flipped it upside down, built a dolly out of some 2x4s, and bolted it in with carriage bolt and you know, black, and put some casters on it, and that's in fact Keith Emerson used one on the road. He had his big C3, but he had the organ that he would like rock and, you know, turn over onto himself, and that was an L100 or an M1. Wow. Seth Justman from the Jay Giles band started touring around when he first started playing with the Jay Giles band. Before his B3, he was playing an M100 and L1. He had that great Hammond sound.
Oh yeah, and that's so important, especially for that time period, because so much of that music, you're right, it resonated with that, and it stood out. Now, how long after that did you like change the keyboard gear as far as like, wow, you know, it's cool? Or did you incorporate that for a long period of time and just add on to it as far as keys?
I think I've just been adding on to things, swapping things out. It's just been a parade of different gear and rigs and everything since that for so many years. No, I ended up, actually, if you've ever heard of a guy guy named David Neil Klein. Sold it to him. I sold that to Dave Klein, and that was one of the first organs that he had.
Wow. And what did you replace it with then? A B3 or?
A B3, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I ended up buying a B3 and another Leslie. And, that's like, okay, I've arrived.
Yes.
I've got a real B3.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the holy grail if you're an organist, man. B3 is, all right, that's the golden ticket right there.
Do you prefer one or the other as far as like playing organ over piano or vice versa?
Well, again, it's two different things. A lot of what I do with Kid Rock is I'm playing both and singing. My B3 faces the audience, then 90 degrees on my left is my piano, which basically sounds just like a grand piano, like a Steinway. So it's two different things. Obviously, if I'm playing both, the left hand is really leaning into the piano, but I'm doing the same kind of stuff I would do with my right with my left, on the high stuff. And it's just whatever's needed. Yeah, organ is a whole different animal.
Yeah.
Piano is very percussive, also can be, very legato, almost more guitarish, if you will. Organ can be everything from very gospel-y to quiet pads to just something screaming, ripping,
right.
Hitting those high notes and percussive,
Right.
I mean, there's so much Santana stuff where Greg Raleigh's just being very percussive with B3.
Did you use string patches at all, like with the organ or the piano?
I use string patches on some of the other synths that I use.
Let's move a little forward. Now, Karen Monster had sent me a video of you playing with her and Scott Campbell at some kind of benefit. Now, when would that have been? Do you remember that?
Gosh,
late
man.
80s, somewhere?
So this would have probably been I'm going to have to say the mid 80s.
Okay.
And I don't remember the exact gig. I remember the time frame when I was doing things with Karen Monster, both on her gig, playing whatever and going and hanging out at the red carpet or some of the other places that had the jam sessions that Chisel Brothers or whoever were hosting. And we would just say, all right, let's play this tonight. And we'd go up and do Chinese rocks. And they would always, Ron Pangborn from the Chisel Brothers always wanted me to sing The Slider by T-Rex. Go up there and be very loose and, like we just learned the stuff, which most times we just did. And but we're not doing full hour sets, so you can go up and do 3 songs. We're fresh on this.
So how long did you play in this format, like with Karen?
On and off for a few years, different things, and we had a group called the New Barbiturates.
Yeah, I remember that.
I played in one of the variations of that. I wasn't in the original one, but a lot of the same members were in when I was in. Greasy Carlisi and Pasadena from the Mutants. Yeah. The singers, the lead singers were Karen Monster, Bootsy X from Bootsy X and the Love Masters, Art Lysak from the Mutants. That was a really, really fun gig. There's some video of us doing things, different places, Lily's and Hamtramck.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those. They're really cool.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, that was such a fun gig because we were doing Mutant songs, Bootsy X songs, Karen stuff. Karen, was always always really loved covering Johnny Thunder's tunes, so we'd be doing Chinese rocks.
Were you taking the B3 to these gigs? Is that what you're using?
No, at that point in time, then they finally came out with something for club. The Hammond and a few other companies came out with an organ that one keyboard and you could pick it up and it weighed like whatever.
Oh, okay. So it was a pad.
Still had drawbars.
Okay.
Still had drawbars on it, and that's all it was an organ. Run a Leslie, but it didn't weigh 350 pounds. It wasn't like a gigantic piece of furniture. It was something that you put on a stand or put on top of another instrument.
What did you think of it as far as feel and the expression that you could put on that coming from a B3?
For what it was and doing clubs, I was just like, wow, this thing is amazing. It wasn't as good as the later versions that they have now because they've really began to use modeling and more emulate all the real sonic intricacies of B3.
Now, what would have been next? Are we talking about the Grave Robbers or the Fans? Because, you know, how you mentioned you didn't really have any music from that. I've got 2 DVDs of the Fans in concert with you.
Okay, so yeah, then the Fans came about, and that was everybody from Jack Black. Jack, you know, said, all right, he kind of bowed out.
Right.
So then originally in Seduce, there was a singer by the name of Mark Fennell.
Right.
Mark really wanted to do something a bit on the theatrical side. He was very into the Tubes, into Pete Waybill.
Yeah, I know Mark. I interviewed him also. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, Mark is very talented, you know, very creative, always thinking about stuff, you know, he would come out as different characters like Harvey Metal and stuff like that, you know. So, yeah, what we did is we did a lot of almost like, let's say, classic rock 60s covers, but we would have this Ramones approach to it. But then we would also do things like by the Turtles, Eleanor. Really great stuff. Great song list of really kick-ass 60s and 70s material, and even into the 50s and everything. We did a lot of Buddy Holly. Went into a very hard-edge Ramones kind of deal, you know, just being Detroit musician.
I also understand the Grave Robbers were originally Jimmie Bones and the Grave Robbers.
Yes, I mean, that's what it always was.
Mickey had told me that they kind of gave you a little hard time about it a little later when he was doing it and said, hey, come on, let's just change to the Grave Robbers. Was that true, or is he exaggerating that?
I don't really remember any. Because, I mean, the original Jimmie Bones and the Grave Robbers was myself, Dominic Lamar on drums, Louis Simon played guitar, Tommy Sokola played guitar, a guy named Randy Nasuti on bass.
Right.
You know, we did some stuff, and we did, you know, again, the same things, you know. We would go up and play some of the college towns, northern Michigan, Mount Pleasant. There was a place called the Foolery, Tom's Foolery, played there. You know, played a lot on the east side, the Red Carpet. You know, all of these places, to Alvin's. And then, you know, after that, it kind of fizzled and different people dropped out. And I'm like, all right, let's keep it going. I'm like, well, what if let's get a hold of Mickey, talk to Mike. Louis jumped over on bass.
Yeah.
Yep. So I played with that evolution, if you want to call it, of it for about a year. That's the recordings that you hear. You found them on YouTube.
Mickey sent them to me. I know they were recorded at Schoolhouse Records in Ann Arbor. He told me that.
Yeah.
And he gave me the
Pete
breakdown.
Bankert and Henry Wack, Brownsville Station.
Yeah. The only thing that was funny about it was he couldn't recall, and I don't know if you will, because I know it's been a long time ago, the titles of the songs other than the last one that he wrote and sang that was kind of like a punk song.
That was Mickey singing on that last one.
Yeah. 4 songs. It's a 4-song
The
demo.
first one, I believe, is called All in the Car. All in the Car. And I think In the Dark and Crying is on there. And I don't know. I'd have to go back and listen.
No, I understand. I know, and it's been a long time. Now, were there more songs recorded at that time, or was it just those 4?
I think we just did those 4. We're just doing what we could afford, you know?
Sure. Was that used to try and get gigs, or were you trying to promote the band to get signed? What was
going with the high aspiration? They ended up being demos and obviously representations of what the band material was, so whoever could, you know, check it out and hear what we were all about.
They were excellent, especially for demos.
Well, thank you, man.
No, I mean, really good.
Now that I have listened back, I was like, and then somebody posted another artist from Detroit, I think it was Terry Burns, and he said, wow, this stuff's, you know, like the Hoodoo Gurus or something like that. I'm like, wow, thanks, you know. Me and Bob Ritchie talk, kid. It's like, hey, well, I want you to do some of these shows. And I had already done some live shows with him. So he had me jump in and do that, and it just stuck. And here we are today. So, you know, again, I went back working a day job, running a printing press and that. And then Bob was like, hey, well, let's jump in on some of my shows. He was going out doing things here and there, and then, you know, some weekend and this and that. So I wasn't doing the road grind, but it just kind of flowed. Then, some pieces got added. Jason Krause was added in. Kenny Olson was already in when I joined. Then not too long after that comes a rehearsal, and we had done a showcase at the State Theater in Atlantic Records. Lava, Jason Flom signed him to Lava, which was a subsidiary of Atlantic. So we entered the studio at White Room, started working with producer, and first 2 songs we did were Somebody's Gotta Feel This and I Got One For You. And those were more or less to prove to Atlantic what we could do in the studio from scratch. Sure. Because none of that stuff was written at the time. That there weren't demos that got them signed. This was like, let's see what you can do. And they were blown away. Ahmet Artigan was, president of Atlantic Records, was completely blown away. And it's like, this is it, man. You got to get these guys going. We did that record, and pretty soon after that.
Did Joe see in the band when you joined? Was he still there?
Yes, Joey entered, before the signing to Atlantic. It was funny because one day this guy shows up, and I thought he was a kid, man.
Yeah,
I literally thought he was a little kid. Shows up with these 2 girls, and like, oh, they brought brother, And then all of a sudden, he's lights up joint, and he's holding a 40, and I'm like, what the, like, oh my God, what's going on here? I'm in the wrong place, man. And they're like laughing. They're like, no, he's like, 20 years old.
Right. Yeah, I understand. He used to come to all the shows, and and kid saw him and stuff, and was, I don't know, amused but entertained, and thought, well.
Bob saw that, and he's just like, oh, gotta incorporate this.
Yeah.
Bob, very smart guy.
Yeah, obviously. He's done it, gone all the way with it, obviously. And you were obviously a big part of it. How much of the stuff from those albums did you write? Or not, I don't mean completely write, but have a hand in? Kid Rock wrote most of it, and you just there again had to add your part? Or were there songs that you wrote and he just added lyrics?
Well, Double Without a Cause was done very organically as a band.
Oh, okay.
We literally went into the studio, and we would just be like laying down a groove and jamming. They would roll tape. A lot of that stuff became the backing tracks for things that, Rollin', Roving Gangster, I Got One For You, Ba with the Ba, Cowboy, everything.
So a lot of that just came out of like more or less jam sessions, you're saying? Then he would have written
a lot of that stuff, and even into this, and a lot of those things ended up on Cock and following record, Trucker Anthem.
Right.
Trucker Anthem's on a later record, but that came out of Devil Without a Cause. All that stuff ended up getting used eventually.
Well, the other thing about that to me that's interesting, I'm just wondering, from your pedigree background and playing all these other styles as far as blues and the other stuff you did into that. Now you're getting into this band, which was pretty much known as more or less almost a revolutionary rap rock. How much of your playing had to change to adapt to that?
None of it had to change because Bob is such a huge music fan, and my chops, my blues chops, whatever, it was all utilized. So he's a fan of. He's no different than the Rolling Stones or the Beatles or anybody that's succeeded in the business. We're all huge fans of this stuff. We're just emulating what we're fans of. I really did not have to change my chops at all. I was playing what I play within the stuff that was being written.
Right. Now, one of the songs that always amused me that you did, obviously, a really big song, other than that first thing, and I can never pronounce it, was All Summer Long, where, it's Sweet Home Alabama, it's Werewolf to London. Was that done purposely as a tribute like that, or?
That one I really can't say. I did not have a hand in writing on that one.
Did you play on it?
No, actually, that's Billy Powell from Leonard Skinner playing piano parts on that. I mean, I play them live,
right?
But that is Billy Powell playing.
So he actually had him on that. But I mean, the reason for doing that, was that just kind of like a tribute to Leonard Skinner? Because I know Skinner toured with you guys, opened for you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're still opening on some of these shows that we're doing on this on the Rock the Country tour. That started out with the mashup idea came from Mike Clark, came in, and it just kind of developed with that. one of the things that I know of, and I want to, do it as a rendition with my band now that when I do my solo stuff, with,
right?
Jimmie Bones and the Snakebit and Wandering.
Yes.
Is If I Got a Name by Jim Croce. Moving me down the highway.
Yeah, great song.
Moving me down the highway. Moving ahead so life won't pass me by. Down, 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 down.
You sing that one?
Well, listen, man. So if you listen to that, it's like down, 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 down,
Yeah.
down, down. That's Interstate Love Song.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's the identical lick. And, I think that's Stone Temple Pilots intentionally did that. I mean, it's even thematically, it's the same. Moving me down the highway, rolling me down the highway. Interstate Love Song. It's very, that's definitely done as an homage.
That's very clever. I hadn't
a lot of love and respect.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but that totally makes sense.
One of the things that I do is I do Low Spark of High Heel Boys by Traffic. When you get to the part that's really that gospel part with the three chords where it's really, really swinging. Down, 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 down. After all of that, and there's a lot of jamming going on.
Yeah.
So then I'll have the drummer break it down. Down, 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 bum, 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 bum. We've come a long, long way together. Through the hard times and the good, Praise You by Fatboy Slim. That's where he got that from.
That's awesome. That's
or at least
awesome.
I suspect that. There's so many great songs that are, that probably maybe intentionally or unintentionally are derived from other great songs.
Well, sure, that's typical through the history of rock and roll, from the first British invasion right on into band. You can tell, like Zeppelin doing these blues songs where their influences were, and some of these other bands. Now, as far as your latest, your band that you're talking about there, how much time do you actually get to play with them? I mean, are you on a hiatus right now as far as Kid Rock and touring, that you have time to do that? Or
we are touring with Kid Rock right now, but it's sporadic dates. It's the Rock the Country tour. Bob has actually put together this thing. It's 2-day festival, all Friday and Saturday nights. We headline one night, either Friday or Saturday, and then Jason Aldean headlines the opposite night. But it's a huge festival. I mean, these things are, 30, 35,000 people on this weekend, people camping and that. And we've got openers like Travis Tritt, Miranda Lambert, Hank Williams Jr. opened up for us this last Saturday night. Like Gilbert, Leonard Skinner, awesome. Big and Rich with Gretchen Wilson. So, that's how that's going down. But the dates are kind of sparse enough, like maybe, I think we have one more left in not till July, towards the end of July, and then we play Sturgis in August, and then a few days later we've got another show in Fargo, kind of wrapping it for the year. And I've got plenty of time to do stuff with my band or do solo stuff if I feel like it.
I wanted to close this interview with one last question and just get your commentary on it. As far as, you playing with Kid Rock and finishing up the touring for this year, I know he's a staunch supporter of Donald Trump and the whole Conservative Party. I had heard there were possibilities of him playing, or you guys playing, some rallies as far as that, Trump rallies. Is there been any talk of that, or is it all just speculation?
Nothing that I've even heard of.
No?
People speculate a lot of stuff. I'm always hearing stuff, and I'll hear things from people that I know, hey, I heard this much going on. I was like, all right, well, you know more than me. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't materialize.
It doesn't happen. I get it.
Yeah, that's the rumor mill.
Right. I just wondered, because this being an election year, and I know he's, quite the conservative as far as that, which I respect. That's fine. And, and I thought maybe something was going on with that, because you guys playing a Trump rally or something like that to raise money for, that, would be huge unto itself. Yeah.
I don't think he needs
No, I'm sure he doesn't, but but at least showing the support.
But hey, man, Bob, and again, man, it's whatever works. We also played Obama's inauguration. We were going to do that, and respectfully, we went and did that.
Sure, sure.
So,
that's cool.
We've got people in the band. This band is made up of people on both sides.
That makes it interesting, doesn't it?
Well, hey, any family is like that.
Yes.
And we are a family.
And you respect one another.
100%. Yeah. There's everybody with different beliefs, different this and that. But when it comes down to, being close and being a family and making music,
right,
we are what we are.
Yeah.
That's what really matters with us.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Any plans or anything? I mean, I know you're going to be finishing the tour, of anything as far as a new album or anything coming down the line that you know of?
Yeah, always working, man. He's always writing. He's always got ideas going, and
so nothing that's been demoed out or anything.
No,
nothing at that stage
that I know of right now. But he's, you know what? He's and the same with me. I'm always writing. I'm always doing something. Just got to keep busy. Keep the juices flowing. There's been times when he said, "All right, I really want to kind of slow it down and everything." And then I think he maybe sits for a couple of weeks and is like, gets antsy. Let's get back out there.
Sure. Yeah, none of you are that old, so why not? The last thing, an interesting thing was, like I said, I reached out to you a couple times, but like I told Karen, I just figured you were real busy. You didn't know me from Adam, so who am I? She said, he's not out touring with Kid Rock right now. He's working on his vegetable garden.
She's absolutely right. I just, I had to spend this week, sinking a bunch of fence posts because I've got deer and groundhogs and stuff just, coming in there and helping themselves. And I'm like, all right, I've had enough of that.
So you're fit enough that you actually physically do that yourself?
Yeah, I grew up in, spent a lot of time up around the farms and everything with my dad. Always had a vegetable garden, milk cows and baled hay and all of that stuff for a lot of years for a tree farm.
Yeah, I understand you had the experience doing that, but you've made a lot of money over the years with Kid Rock, I'm sure, to where you could afford to have somebody do it so you must still enjoy it.
Man, I'm not going to let anybody else have all the fun.
That's what I'm saying. So you enjoy it. That's very cool. All right, Jimmy, I'm going to let you go. Appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. I've learned quite a bit. I'm sure the people that will listen to this will get a big kick out of it. And
the stuff that I do with my band, and that I released on Snakebit and Wandering, then, like when I released the two singles, Bittersweet, which was really in tribute to my own grandfather. And if you look on YouTube, that's him on the picture, him on the farm in his 20s and in the 1920s. But, it's a song that I wrote in tribute to him. And the chorus is, don't weep for me, I've had a good run. The feeling is bittersweet, but there's folks I'm dying to see again, and someone I'm dying to meet. It's kind of anybody don't feel bad. I'm checking out here and everything, but it's going to be way better.
Going to a better place, sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And through hell for heaven's sake is more gospel feeling, but it's really about the love you have as a father or any family member or whatever.
Sure.
You put yourself last. You put the work in for a greater cause, and it's not for you. It's for the other people. But I've performed all of this stuff with a band. I performed it like Leon Russell or Elton John or something, just playing piano. Singing it. I've done it opening for Pat Benatar and Neil Geralt. I've opened for 2 nights. Actually, the last appearance that Gordon Lightfoot's last visit to Detroit when he did the 2 nights at the Royal Oak Theater. I opened for both nights, completely solo. So, doing stuff like that.
That's awesome. And I've seen quite a few of the videos of you just playing the piano. Some of the stuff I really enjoyed a lot was when you were doing that Christmas stuff.
I do that for fun every
Sure.
year, and just if I can brighten people's day.
Yeah, well, you definitely do. And again, I want to thank you so much for talking to me. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, man.
Give my best to Kid Rock and the boys, and tell them to just keep doing it, man.
I shall.
It's good stuff, man, and I'm glad to see people like him and Jack White and Gretchen Von Fleet, those bands or whatever, coming out of the Michigan area, Detroit area, and showing the world that there's a lot of great talent here.
Absolutely.
And it's just great to see that. And you guys are definitely pretty much the top of that list. Oh, Eminem also, I guess you want to add him.
Oh, yeah. You cannot. Genius.
Right.
Can't forget him.
No, for sure. Okay, Jimmy, again, thank you so much. And you have a very good evening, sir.
You too, buddy.
All right, take care.
Take care. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye. Well, that was Jimmie Bones, who, of course, is with Kid Rock. And as you heard, he played with several other groups before that I was aware of, being Jack Black, the Fans, and the Jimmie Bones and Grave Robbers, who he played with, those bands, at least in one form or another, with a good friend of mine, Mickey St. Clair, who, of course, had played with Seduce in the original days. And just a tremendous guy, a phenomenal artist. His solo stuff is really good. Had a lot of success, obviously, with Kid Rock, but he also did some stuff with Robert Bradley and had a lot of success there with that. You just can't say enough, and it's great to see great talent like that still standing out and coming out, like I said, of the area. Anyway, the last thing I want to mention, as usual, if you like these interviews, and I'm hoping you do, because I got a lot more to come, if you can hit the like button, leave a comment. We're going to end up having some contests down the line where you can win some free stuff. And so, leave a comment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything. It just helps out the channel. I would really appreciate it. Anyway, like I said, with that being said and everything else, keep rocking.